One thing that people seem to have a really difficult time wrapping their heads around is the fact that they're giving away their time, their energy, their effort, their skills, the skills that they took years, decades to develop for pieces of paper, things that can be printed out of nothing, things that can be created with the press of a button. So you're giving away all of this stuff that you accumulated over time. You're giving away your finite time. You're giving your finite energy. You're giving the time that you should be dedicating to your family and friends in exchange for pieces of paper that somebody can borrow into existence. They can create them out of nothing. Once you understand this, it becomes very difficult to continue saving in US dollars. And in this video, I want to hammer this point home. Let's get started. When you give away your time, effort, energy, and everything that you have ever accumulated away for pieces of paper, what you're doing is you're putting yourself and your future finances at a disadvantage because you're collecting something that takes no effort, energy, or time to create more of. So when you get paid in US dollars, when you get paid in Canadian dollars, what you're doing is you're accepting something for your finite resources that can be created out of nothing. I keep saying that out of nothing, out of nothing. These currencies that we have today, the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, if somebody goes to a bank and they ask that bank to give them US dollars, Canadian dollars, that bank can just create more. They can just enter something in their spreadsheets in their database and they can say this person owes us back and they lend that money to that person. So now this person can go and start a business with it. They can pay you with it. They can buy your time. They can buy your life with something that they got that was created out of nothing. So they got this piece of paper. Now they can buy your life with it. Now they can buy your days with it. They can buy the thing that you have a limited amount of. With something that can be created out of nothing, it's really difficult to get an entire population to start believing that pieces of plastic, pieces of cotton, things that can be printed out of nothing are valuable. Think about how difficult that must have been. We went from trading gold, this physical hard rock, to trading pieces of paper that represented that gold, to now using plastic cards and tapping everywhere. We don't even have a connection with our money anymore. And now we have digital money. So we have CBDCs. So CBDCs are coming all around the world. We're going to see European countries have CBDCs. We're eventually going to see probably Canada with a CBDC. I think we might see the US with a CBDC, even though the US is working against it. I think eventually it will happen because if these countries don't truly adopt Bitcoin, they're going to need to keep stealing value from the people that live in these countries. I know that this is the plan because I came across this post from Ursula von der Leyen. So she is the president of the EU. So let's read what it says in this post. It says Europe has all it needs to take the lead in the competitiveness race. This month, the EU Commission will unveil the European Savings and Investment Union. Will turn private savings into much needed investment and will work with our institutional partners to get it off the ground. So what they're saying here, what she's saying here, these are plain words. You can see this. There's no reading between the lines. There's no secret here. Everything is plain in sight. You can read it here. So what she's saying here is that if you're in Europe, if you have a bank account, if you have an account with their institutional partners, so I'm assuming that's banks, I'm assuming that's all of the banks that they have, the deposit institutions, they're going to work with those institutions to take your savings and use it to pump up their economy. And who benefits when they pump up the economy? The wealthy. Who benefits when they pump up the economy? The people who own stocks, the people who own real estate, the people who own all of the assets from the 20th century. So, what they're going to do is they're going to take your savings and they're going to hand them over to investors so that investors come to the European Union and they put more money into the European Union. They're going to lend your money to those investors. They're going to pay you nothing for it and they're going to dilute your savings to zero. We already have an insane inflation problem all around the world. If you speak with people from literally anywhere in the world, they're all going to say, the younger people at least, they're all going to say that it's impossible to afford a house. It's impossible to afford your regular day to day standard of living. They all say this. And yet, we want more and more investment. We want more and more price increases. Investment is code for prices will go up. They want more and more money to go into these assets. They want more money to be chasing houses. They want more money to be chasing stocks so that the prices go up and the Ponzi scheme doesn't collapse. This is just them kicking the can down the road. And if you're a millennial, if you're Gen Z, if you're Gen X, and you're continuing to save in euros, in pounds, in dollars, whatever the currency is that you're saving in, you're going to get screwed. Plain and simple. More and more currency is going to continue to be added to the system. More and more money is going to continue to go into the hands of the wealthy, diluting everything that you've ever saved. So, what Bitcoin does is, as a currency that can't be created out of nothing, it solves a lot of problems. It solves, for example, the housing crisis. Today, think about how many people can afford to buy a house. Most people are stuck renting for their entire lives because they just can't afford to buy a house because the price of houses continues to go up. If they were able to save the down payment for a house, they would probably be paying less in mortgage than they would in rent every single month. And this is another problem. In the current financial system, people can take on mortgages, they can borrow money that's created out of thin air. The bank will give them a fixed interest rate, and that fixed interest rate, that stability, is at the cost of other people. So the bank creates this money out of nothing. They give it to people who want to borrow money to buy houses, and the people who can't afford to save a down payment, the people who can't buy a property, see that they keep getting pushed further and further down the property ladder. So they can never afford a house. It gets more and more unaffordable to buy a house because the price keeps going up. It requires a bigger down payment, but their income hasn't increased. So, what Bitcoin does is it solves the housing crisis by making it so that people don't need to buy houses in order to save for the future. Houses are used as a savings vehicle because fiat currencies don't work. Today, we use fiat currencies as money, but of course, you can't store value in them because they can be created out of nothing. If something can be created out of nothing, at some point, the people who can create it are going to take advantage of the people who are saving in that thing that can be created out of nothing. So we've been brainwashed our entire lives to save in dollars. Our governments figure out that we will trust those dollars for the rest of our lives. So what they start doing is they start printing more and more and they start enriching themselves and they start funding a system that's overly bloated with government spending, and it continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what these governments do is they continue to print more and more money and they start flooding the market. They start flooding the economy with money because they know that you'll continue to trust that their currency will have value in the future. Your trust is being used against you. You're getting paid in pieces of paper for your labor, for your time, your energy. So you think that you can save those pieces of paper for the future? No way. Your trust in this situation will always be taken advantage of because there's an information asymmetry. If you don't understand that these pieces of paper, these forms of money that we save in can be created out of nothing, then you're not going to know how they're taking advantage of you. You're not going to know why the prices of everything keeps going up. The price of everything keeps going up because more and more of these currencies are chasing the things that we need. More and more of them are chasing food, they're chasing water, they're chasing cars, they're chasing houses. More and more of these currencies are being created, added to the economy, and they're constantly chasing the things that we need. So the price of everything goes up because as more of these currencies are created, it doesn't mean that there's more production. It just means that more people now have the ability to buy the things that are already in existence. So when you're not producing more things, but you're producing more money, the price of everything goes up because the cost of raw materials rises. So let's say, for example, you see the prices of foods in your local grocery store going up because they have to pay more for their labor. They have to pay more for their employees. Their employees demand a higher salary because their cost of living is going up. So, how Bitcoin solves this problem for housing is that people will no longer need to buy houses as a savings vehicle. They'll start selling their houses they'll start accumulating Bitcoin. In terms of Bitcoin, the price of a house will go down forever. People are not going to want to hold houses as a savings vehicle anymore, at least the ones who understand Bitcoin. And what we're going to see is that there's a lot more houses than we need. Housing is abundant. 10% of the houses in the US are unoccupied. There are tons of rental properties that are unoccupied because the people who own them aren't getting the price that they want. So what's going to happen is all that competition is going to be eliminated in the housing market. As soon as people figure out how Bitcoin works, they're going to start dumping their rental properties because it won't make any sense to hold those rental properties anymore. Today, we don't even buy houses just for the rental income. We buy the houses for the property appreciation. We expect that house prices are going to keep going up. So even if we take a loss on the rental, we're still making money because the price of the house will continue to go up forever. But when you look at real estate investing versus Bitcoin, Bitcoin's returns are going to be much, much higher with a much lower amount of risk. Every single person on earth has access to Bitcoin, but not everybody has access to prime real estate in developed areas. Right now, a very small group of people own a very large amount of real estate, disproportionate to the amount that they need. So, what I think is going to happen is over time, the people who are extremely wealthy are going to at least want to borrow against their rental properties to buy Bitcoin. So they're going to push the price of Bitcoin higher and higher and higher. And at some point, they're going to realize there's no point in holding the rental property because their returns from Bitcoin are so much higher. I know a lot of people are going to see the tax implications of selling their rental properties as a barrier for owning Bitcoin, but there are going to be other ways that they're going to lose money when they avoid those tax losses. I think what we're going to see over the next decade is that the housing bubble is going to pop and house prices are going to fall to their utility value in terms of Bitcoin. What I mean by the utility value is that the monetary premium is going to be erased. So the people who are using houses as a savings account will no longer want to buy those houses as a savings account, and instead they'll buy Bitcoin. We're going to see the price of a house fall to the value that an owner gets out of living in that house. Today, the median new house in the US is worth about 5 Bitcoin. And I think in the future, it's going to go much, much lower. It's going to go below 1 Bitcoin. It's going to go below zero point 0.1 Bitcoin. It's going to go below 0.01 Bitcoin. But in terms of US dollars, those house prices are going to continue to rise because the Federal Reserve will continue to print more dollars and the US government will continue to borrow more dollars and add them to the economy. The same thing applies to Europe. In terms of euros, house prices will continue to rise forever because euros don't have a finite supply. More and more euros will continue to chase houses in the European Union and prices will continue to rise. But in terms of Bitcoin, those prices are going to fall below 0.01 Bitcoin at some point in the future. And now let's go back to the main point of this video. You're giving away your time, energy, and labor for something that can be printed. We've been conditioned to believe that we should spend our entire lives chasing this thing that can be created out of nothing. No matter how hard you work, no matter what you sacrifice, you're never going to have enough dollars because the US dollar can be created out of nothing. Everything that you save will always be diluted. And now I'm going to show you a chart that really illustrates the point that I'm making very well. No matter how many dollars you have, you're always going to feel like you're broke at some point in the future because more and more dollars can be created. So M1 is a measure of the money supply that includes currency and deposits that can be easily converted to cash. It's also known as narrow money. What's included in M1? Coins and banknotes, checking account balances, other checkable deposits like NOW and ATS accounts, a NOW, so a negotiation order of withdrawal. Deposit account is an interest-bearing demand deposit that allows the depositor to write drafts against the funds held in the account, similar to a checking account, but with the added advantage of earning interest. So basically what it is just I guess almost like a guaranteed account that has money in it. The point is that M1 is money that can be converted into cash and spent on the things that you want. So let's take a look at the chart for the M1 money supply. I showed you the M2 money supply, but let's take a look at the M1 this time. So we can see here, the total M1 money supply in January 1959 was $138.9 billion. And this is in terms of US dollars. We can see that over time, this number kept going up and up and up. And from January 1959 to February 2020, this is right before we had lockdowns, the number was at $3.9 trillion dollars, almost 4 trillion. So it went from 140 to 4 trillion. And then something happened in 2020 in these 4 months. So February 2020 to March 2020 to April 2020 to May 2020. And this number quadrupled. It went up 4 times within 4 months, 4x. So what that means is that whatever you had saved is now worth 25% of what it was worth just 4 months ago. If you don't see how corrupt this is, I don't know how to help you. Bitcoin is the solution to this problem because when we go to a Bitcoin standard, when the world starts saving in Bitcoin, it means that governments can't print more money out of nothing. They can no longer create more money without having to put in the time, energy, effort required to create more of it. That's how Bitcoin works. To create more Bitcoin, you have to run specialized computers. You have to dedicate time, energy, and effort to the network. You can't just create Bitcoin by adding an entry to a database somewhere on your computer. This is the difference. With fiat currencies, governments can create more out of nothing. Banks can create more out of nothing. And you're working for fiat currencies. So you're working for something that's worthless. You're working for something that we've been brainwashed to believe has value, when in reality it doesn't. So on a Bitcoin standard, you're still going to have to give away some of your time to create value. You're going to have to sacrifice some time with your family and friends. But instead of getting pieces of paper that can be created out of nothing, you're going to be paid in an asset that has actual value, that can't be created out of nothing. At some point, there will never be any more of this asset. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Most people have no idea that this is the case. Most people have no idea how many Bitcoin there will be. They think that it's a random currency and more of it can be created at any point. They think that governments need to approve its use. They think that if governments reject it, then it's going to zero. They don't understand it. The majority of people, 99% of the world, don't understand that Bitcoin solves all of their financial problems. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you see that Bitcoin can fix your financial future, you'll feel like you never have enough. So start studying Bitcoin, start buying Bitcoin, figure out how it works, put in the time so that you don't get left behind, so that you're not stuck earning pieces of paper when the future wealthy, when the people who in the future have all of this freedom are currently stacking Bitcoin. We're in this race to accumulate Bitcoin, and most people don't even know that it's happening. So the sooner you start, the sooner you'll finish. The sooner you get started with stacking Bitcoin, the sooner you'll become financially free and you'll no longer have to worry about your government creating more and more currencies and devaluing your savings. As soon as you figure out how Bitcoin works, you're going to realize that the entire world is designed to keep you broke, to keep you spending, to keep you giving away money, to keep you earning, to keep you paying taxes to the government. The entire world is designed for this. Study Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, and relax. That's all you have to do. You don't have to worry about stocks. You don't have to worry about real estate. You don't have to worry about investing in anything else. Just buy Bitcoin, save in Bitcoin, and chill.